Bob the preacher, can he teach ya? Bob the preacher, yes he can. Bob here, and I'm talking about horror. You know, Stephen King, The Shining, ooh, scary stuff. Over the years I've written quite a bit of horror, and I've read a lot of horror, and it's not what people think it is. Horror is fantastic literature, makes great and fun films. Well, except if you saw Ice Queen, which quite frankly is a bit dull. But when it comes to horror, I like to think I know a little bit. That's what my book Oodacoo is. It's horror. Some people have actually emailed me asking me if it's religious. Get real? I don't want to write a religious book. No, it's dark urban fantasy and it's horror. I'm also questioned about how can I be a Christian and write horror. Where does that come from? I know a number of Christians who are very good horror writers, and I know a lot of atheists that are fantastic horror writers, and then there's the no-ideists who are also brilliant horror writers. In Australia there's fantastic writers across the country. A lot of you people might not know them, but I have to throw up the names of Robert Hood and Stephen Dedman, who I think you can just Google and find. But when it comes to Christians writing horror, I write horror. Does that mean I'm an evil person? Well, if that makes me an evil person, what does that make other horror writers who don't profess a faith at all? Are they eviler? No. It's a fiction medium that draws on aspects of the archaic, our old fears, even our caveman days of hiding away from darkness. Before we had fire and was able to progress into the night, lighting our paths. And then in the shadows there were things that made noise and frightened us. That's where horror comes from, the unknown. The exploration on the unknown is what horror writers do, and that's what horror film writers try to explore, the unknown. Who remembers Alien with Sigourney Weaver? True horror. Yes, some people called it science fiction. It was on a spaceship, but hey, it was horror. And the unknown and the alien and the scariness of it all. Who remembers the guy on the table with the through the chest? Ah, did I feel ill? Fantastic though. Oh, I loved every minute of it. But that was horror. It scared me. That's what horror does. Does it matter that I have a belief system that incorporates Jesus Christ? I don't think so. Of course, there are going to be some people out there who think you can't be a Christian and write horror and science fiction, which tends to challenge the basis of Christian belief. No, that's a good thing. I need to challenge the basis of that, and I do it through literature. I do it through horror, and I use horror at its best to explore the unknown, to take the reader to places that will scare them. And now, I don't write for children. Hey, I'm not here to scare little children. I'm here to scare adults. A lot harder to scare than kids. But in Australia, we have great horror writers. And I suppose that's what I want to tell you. Not so much that I'm a horror writer, I'm a Christian, and I have no problem with that. Some of you will. But in Australia, we have some of the best writers in the world. And I'd like you to know about them. And I'd like you to dig up some stories. Look, there's a magazine called Borderlands. All one word. Look it up on Google. have a look at that. Get a few copies. Short stories of horror from some fantastic writers in this country. And be scared. Be prepared to be challenged by the unknown. That's so mind-blowing that we can still do that with words. And also the long-running Aurealis magazine. Was that how that's spelled? Auralis. Aurealis. Yes, been going for years. They do some dark fantasy, horror, good short stories from good Australian writers. And I'm saying, get out there, get the copies of these mags, read some great horror, and then have an opinion about what makes a good horror story. Don't stand back there in your little ivory towers and your little, ooh, I don't like that because it sounds so ghastly. Don't stand back doing that. That's childish. Silly. No. I kind of like horror. It's one of the few writing genres that still challenges the human psyche. One of the few things that I find enjoyable that tests not only my faith, but tests my ability as a writer. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a lot of horror, was famous for it. So, if Edgar Allan Poe, who undoubtedly was probably a Christian, but I can't be sure because I didn't meet the guy, could write brilliant horror, challenge the mind, give us a look into the unknown, then if it's good by that guy, it should be good by the rest of us. Alright? I've mentioned a few things. Go search them out. Tell the guys I sent you. Bob the Preacher says, look up Robert Hood. Look up Stephen Dedman. Look up Borderlands. Great stories. And look up Aurealis magazine. Tell the guys Bob the Preacher sent you along. Hey, they might even give you a discount. But, hey, I didn't say that. Anyway, this is Bob the Preacher. Ooh, in his mode of horror. Saying, read on, be scared.